The Karveth Armada materialized above Earth like a steel storm, 300 warships blotting out the sun over major cities. Their arrival was meant to be humanity's end, a swift, brutal subjugation by a species that had conquered 47 star systems into centuries. Commander Jin stood on the bridge of the Orbital Defense Station Rora, watching the enemy fleet descend with cold calculation. Her dark eyes tracked each vessel, her mind already running probability matrices. Beside her, Helen, the station's chief tactical officer, pulled up holographic displays showing the Karveths opening salvos. "They're targeting communications hubs first," Helen said, his fingers dancing across the interface. "Classic suppression doctrine. They want us deaf and blind before the real assault begins." Jin nodded. "Let them think it's working. Shut down all military frequencies except the hardline network. I want them confident." The first 6 hours were devastating. Karveth plasma lances carved through buildings in New York, London, and Tokyo. Their ground forces 8-foot-tall reptilian warriors, clad in adaptive armor, swept through city streets with brutal efficiency. News networks broadcast scenes of destruction before going dark. The aliens had done this before, perfected it across dozens of worlds. What they didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this exact scenario for 70 years. Helen watched the tactical display as Karveth drop ships deposited troops in predetermined zones. "They're following the Arcturus for pattern," he observed. "Same deployment grid, same force distribution." "Because it worked there," Jin replied. "Every conquered species fought the same way, defending static positions, trying to hold ground. The Karveth adapted to conventional warfare, but humans don't do conventional," Helen said with a grim smile. At the 6-hour mark, something shifted. The Karveth commander aboard the flagship Conquest's Edge noticed at first the human military forces were retreating, but not in disarray. They were pulling back in perfect coordination, abandoning cities without the expected panic. Then the cities came alive. In Chicago, the skyscrapers that had seemed like helpless targets suddenly bristled with hidden weapons. Electromagnetic pulse cannons, disguised as architectural features, fired in synchronized bursts. Karveth dropships fell from the sky like dead insects, their systems fried. In the streets below, what the invaders had assumed were fleeing civilians turned out to be militia forces, in adaptive camouflage, armed with weapons specifically designed to penetrate Karveth armor. "The buildings themselves are weapons platforms," Helen reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. "Every major city has been retrofitted over the past 3 decades. We turned our own infrastructure into a trap." Jin opened a channel to Earth's military command. "Phase 2. Show them what humans do when we get serious." Across the planet, the counterattack began, not with honor or warning, but with the calculated brutality of a species that had studied war for its entire history. Humans didn't fight like the other races the Karveth had conquered. They fought like humans. In orbit, the seemingly defenseless cargo haulers that had been fleeing the battle suddenly reversed course. Their hulls split open, revealing military-grade railguns. The Karveth fleet, clustered tightly for optimal ground support, found themselves caught in a crossfire they hadn't anticipated. Helen coordinated the assault, his tactical genius turning the enemy's strength into a fatal weakness. "Target their command ships first," Jin ordered. "Cut off the head." The Karveth warriors on the ground discovered that humans didn't just fight with technology. In Moscow, a mechanized unit found themselves facing soldiers who fought with a ferocity that bordered on insanity, troops who had been given stimulants that pushed their bodies beyond normal limits, who saw injury as merely an inconvenience. In Mumbai, guerrilla fighters used the city's labyrinthine underbelly to strike and vanish, employing tactics that were thousands of years old, but no less effective. The turning point came when Helen identified a critical flaw in the Karveth fleet's formation. "Their shields," he said, pulling up a schematic. "They're designed to disperse energy attacks, but kinetic weapons at sufficient velocity would punch straight through." Jin finished. She activated the station's main weapon, a mass driver that had been charging for the past 6 hours, drawing power from the sun itself. The tungsten rod, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck the Karveth flagship dead center. The shield didn't disperse the impact. It simply ceased to exist along with the front third of the ship. Secondary explosions rippled through the fleet as munitions detonated. The Karvath commander, dying on his shattered bridge, sent one final transmission. What are these creatures? On Earth, the answer was being written in fire and blood. Humans were creatures who had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain, not through strength or natural weapons, but through relentless adaptation and an almost pathological refusal to surrender. They were a species that had fought themselves in countless wars, learning and evolving with each conflict. They were survivors who had nearly destroyed their own planet and then saved it, who had reached for the stars despite every obstacle dot by the 12th hour. The Karvath retreat was complete. 2/3 of their fleet limped away through FTL jumps, leaving their ground forces to surrender or die. The invasion that was meant to be humanity's subjugation became a cautionary tale, whispered across the galaxy. Jin stood on the observation deck, watching recovery efforts begin on the scarred planet below. Helen joined her, exhaustion evident in his posture but satisfaction in his eyes. "They'll come back," he said quietly. "With more ships, better prepared." Jin smiled a cold, predatory expression. "Let them. We'll be ready. That's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, we survive." She paused, watching the sun rise over a battered but unbroken Earth. "And when someone threatens our home, we don't just fight back, we get serious," Helen finished. Below them, humanity was already rebuilding, already preparing, already planning. The Karvath had lasted 6 hours against a species holding back. They had no idea what awaited them if they ever faced humans who had truly decided to go to war. The galaxy would learn soon enough. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or tactics. It was the simple, terrifying fact that humans never knew when to quit.